Hey, I hope you all are having a good day. As we are now in summer, for most of you that know me, I write a lot of poetry during the summertime. And as I was getting out my old journal to see some of the poems I wrote for last year, I said, why don't I make a video about it and talk a bit about my journey as an artist, specifically a haiku poet. For those of you that know me, I've been writing poetry much of my life, but I've been writing haiku poetry specifically and almost exclusively for the last 8 years, since 2012, and I've been very fortunate to experience a notable degree of success. So I thought I'd talk about that a little bit, hopefully inspire some of you who are thinking about doing something a little bit artistic, particularly those of you that follow me that are in the corporate life, which is very rigid. Some of you I know might be looking into doing something different, so maybe this could inspire you to do it. So this is really just a timeline of that journey for me. I have a timeline sketched out to my left on my laptop, so bear with me as I kind of peek over here and there just to make sure that I'm doing things in chronological order. And excuse the noise in the background, I hear some motorcycles now, so you might hear that, a cop car, an ambulance, so just stay with me. So elementary school, that's the first bullet. So as I mentioned at the top of this video, I was introduced to poetry in elementary school. I forget what year I was in specifically, but I remember I took a class on it, and we not only wrote poetry, but we created our own, paper. We did paper mache. Like, it was just a very creative class, and a big part of it was poetry, which we were graded on. And I don't know specifically what I used to write about back then, but I just remember enjoying the therapeutic benefits that I got from poetry. And I remember my poetry teacher, or English teacher, she pulled me aside out of the classroom one day and said, hey, you should keep doing this thing. You're pretty good at it. Now, I don't know if I was one of many students she did this to. It's kind of a goodwill, but I do remember that moment. And at that point, I don't really remember, being consistent with poetry outside of that class. Again, I was young and there was a lot of life to happen. So, we jumped to high school. That was my next memory of writing poetry again. And at that time, I would write it here and there, but I didn't own it, right? Because back then, I think poetry has gotten a lot of acceptance now. For some reason, I don't really know what drove that, but I guess it's just the inclusive nature of today's culture. But back then in high school, some years ago, 2008-ish, it wasn't in vogue. So I kind of kept my poetry to myself. I didn't really talk about it much. And again, I wasn't even writing it much. It was high school, so I'm starting to think about girls. I'm starting to, get into, my friends and video games. Just like so many different things to capture my attention. And so much thing to think about, right? You start worrying about how you are positioned in society amongst the schools. So I was just super distracted. So high school, I wrote here and there, but it was really in college that I began to pick up the pen, specifically during my time at Baruch College, where up to that point, I was fixated on working in finance. I wanted to be a stock trader. As a matter of fact, if you see my other videos, you probably know this. When I was in high school, that same very high school, in 10th grade, was it 10th grade? I forget here and there. Yeah, it was 10th grade. I created my high school's first investment club, right? I got all my friends together. I said, hey, invest your video game money, your Yu-Gi-Oh card money, and let's invest in this brokerage account. In some way, somehow I convinced them, and we started trading stocks in the real brokerage account. The school organized it and created it, and we traded real stocks. So at that point, I became obsessed with the idea of investing. Particularly, I was introduced to finance during an AP economics course, and coming from born and raised in Harlem, that class really opened up my mind to the global market. It opened my mind to the fact there was more going on in the world than my own neighborhood. So I became obsessed with just being in finance, and everything that I did kind of modeled after that ambition and that vision. So yeah, by the time I got into college, I still kind of had that mentality, but then I took a lot of marketing and advertising classes, and that kind of swayed me considerably to the point where I was thinking about going over to marketing. As a matter of fact, in my head, I was like, okay, I want to do this marketing thing and give it a shot. So I had a dilemma, right? Because all of my self-esteem, all of my self-identity was wrapped into finance. Everything I did in terms of extracurricular activities were largely in finance. That was something that I can speak to and speak about very easily. So again, I was in this kind of career transition dilemma. So at that point, I said, okay, I needed something to justify why a firm should hire me in a marketing capacity. Again, I've never been to a marketing event at that point. I'm just trying to be inventive. So I said, well, what can I do that's creative? I know that marketing people, they're very creative. They come up with advertisements sometimes. I know they do a lot of writing. They're just very creative. And in my mind, as a finance person, I was thinking very rigidly, right? I just had to be rigid. I had to know the numbers. I had to be a good analyst. But now I had to do something creative. So I said, what did I do in my history that's creative that I can probably prove to somebody that I'm worth hiring? And then, it's kind of like a light bulb moment. I said, oh yeah, I do this writing thing, right? So I said, okay, well maybe if I can get published as a writer, this is me in college, if I can get published as a writer, that would make me in some way kind of like undeniable, right? Like I have legitimate proof that I'm creative. So that became my new mission, was to get published as a writer. So following that epiphany, I remember I used to read the Metro New York. The Metro and the AM, they used to give it out for free in New York. I think they still do. But, they were just all over the place back then. I'm talking around 2012, in 2012 specifically. And I remember picking up the AM newspaper. It was literally, and I kid you not, I made this epiphany like on a Saturday. On Monday morning, I picked up the Metro. And I opened it up. I think it was probably like end of March. No, it was early April, like April 1st or something. So I opened up the newspaper, and it's literally a call to action from the mayor's office. Mayor Bloomberg, he was the mayor at the time. And it literally said, calling all NYC, calling all poets. The mayor's office is looking for, the top poets in New York to submit their work as part of National Poetry Month, which is in April. And I was like, whoa. It was one of those moments for those of you that kind of have a belief in destiny, or just like, your steps are guided. Like that was a moment for me. I was like, whoa, like this is meant to happen. I literally thought about writing poetry. And to make it a little bit more on the nose, while I was having this epiphany, I did some research and I said, what are other forms of poetry? Because I didn't really feel like writing long form. I wanted to try something different. And Japanese haiku came up, and I love the idea of it, right? For those of you that don't know very quickly, it's a very short form version of poetry. So it's 5-7-5. So 5 syllables followed by 7 syllables followed by another 5 syllables. So it's a very short form of poetry, and I just became in love with that idea. I even practiced it a little bit. So when I saw that newspaper highlight haiku and poetry within like 48 hours, like my mind was blown. I was like, wow, like this is really, some real destiny, right? So I remember, and again, I've written maybe up to 2 haikus at that point, and that was just me trying it out. So I go ahead and I stuff the Metro in my backpack so I don't forget it. And I get home, or even on that train ride, I started just writing. I just took out my notebook and I just started writing, just like ideas, trying to look at different stimuli and just compose all that into a poem. So I had about 5 poems by the time I got to campus. And yeah, I was just writing. I wrote for about 2 days, I think, because it really wasn't a lot of time. And you had to submit them via Twitter. So I think I either had a Twitter account or I created one because of it. And then I just submitted I looked at the 16, maybe 30 poems I had, and I picked the top like the top 10 or something like that. Like I didn't want to drown them, so I chose like the top 8 or something, maybe less than that. And I just submitted those. And then I looked at the hashtag, which I forget what it was. It was like NYC pocket poem or something like that. And I looked at it and it was like people from all over the world submitting. And I was like, no, like I thought it was just me. Like I thought I was the only one that read this newspaper. So I submitted the poem, and I just waited. I just submitted them. You know, I added the mayor's office at Bloomberg, used the hashtag, and I just sat there. You know, at the time and even currently, my pen name is Maha Haiku. That's M-A-H-A Haiku. At the time, I was like, okay, well, if I have a name with haiku in it, they might pay more attention to it. And Maha means great, and I forgot which language, and I don't want to be wrong on this, but Maha it means great in some Asian language. But nonetheless, so I submitted those poems, and you know, a day goes by, 2 days, 3, a week goes by, and you know, again, I just created Twitter for this competition, so I have no idea about the notifications or anything and how this works. Again, social media, it was there, but it was still kind of new to a lot of us. So I looked at my phone like maybe a week later, 2 weeks later. By that time, it was still on my mind, but I kind of forgot about it. I went on with my life, and I saw a notification like at Maha Haiku at New York City's mayor's office. I'm like, what? So I open it up. It's like 7 a.m. and it says, congratulations to the winners. There were 4 winners of the NYC Poet Tweet competition. I was just like, whoa, like my mind was just blown that I won this. Like I did it, like in under like a month, if you will. Like I accomplished this goal. And what they did was they published it in the Metro newspaper, I think the following day. And then they shared each poem on the MTV Jumbotron in Times Square. So like my mind was just blown. And I think what that moment taught me was just the power of social media, because I was never really into social media growing up. Like even when it was getting hip, like I was always a pen and pad type of guy. So when that happened, I was like, yo, like this like I'm looking at my phone, I'm looking at Twitter, like this is serious, bro. Like you can touch anyone with this social media thing. You know, that's the way I was articulating it. I was just like blown away. So instead of me going to 42nd Street to take a picture of the Jumbotron, I kind of regret this now. I just went around the city and picked up every single Metro newspaper, because I was still kind of in that mentality that like print is everlasting, you know, digital can go away. So I got about 50, I'm going to show you now, I got it next to me. I got about 50 of these newspapers. Literally, I'm not even kidding, it's probably like 60. But I didn't get a picture of the MTV Jumbotron, but obviously it was written in the press release that came out that it was there, so I'll take that as gospel. But yeah, dude, it was pretty cool. We'll see if this works, if it works with me showing this on camera. If not, I'll do something in post, hopefully. But yeah, poem in your pocket. Poem in your pocket. Let me see if I get out the way. Poem in your pocket. Am I on this page? Yeah, I'm right here. So Maha Haiku. It's showing itself. It's showing itself backwards on my screen, but maybe in post it'll be the right direction. So hopefully you can read that. If not, I'll just fix it. Excuse the noise in the back. But so that was my first big achievement in poetry, right? And at that point, I was like, okay, I got something here. You know, let me keep on going. I really enjoy this. I enjoy the art form too. It served a certain end in terms of just trying to legitimize myself as a creative, but I really loved it. So it was a perfect marriage. So by that time, I'm looking a bit at the timeline. Now we're still in the summer. Now we hit the summer of 2020. So we went from the spring to summer of the same year. Now I'm just like hot, you know, like I'm like, I think I can do something with this. I'm enjoying this. I love haiku. Again, a great source of therapy. I love the challenge of it. I love it because it's kind of like problem solving. I just love the challenge of haiku. So I was writing, so that following summer, and I guess it kind of speaks to just how I am in general. Like when my mind is on something, I was writing 8 hours a day, no lie, every single day, about every single day that summer. Just getting better and better at the craft. I was writing, you know, obviously at home in coffee shops, For those of you that know me personally, this was a big part of my life at the time. I was writing at a beautiful place. It's called the Poets House here in New York City. Let me put my password back in. But I was writing at the Poets House in New York City, which is in Tribeca. I would do a lot of writing in there and meet the people and just get a vibe of the people in the industry, just people that were moving and shaking in there, and kind of get a kind of temperature check on how they go about their process. So I was writing every single day. Again, the goal was to get better, to really have a grasp on how it's written traditionally, but more importantly, develop my own writing style, right? So that was very important to me. So we hit the next year in 2013. So again, I'm still writing. It's been almost a year now that I've been writing consistently. Again, I'm in love with the art form. I'm very happy that I've been able to have the fortune of being published at that point. And NASA decides, okay, well, we want to study Mars. So they created something called the Maven spacecraft, which, and correct me in the comments if I'm a little bit off, but it was a spacecraft that was meant to fly around the orbit of Mars and collect data, like atmospheric data and other information. That was kind of the high level. And I guess as a way to kind of drum up interest and attention around it, they had a haiku competition. Yeah, I believe it was haiku specifically. I got the diploma next to me, but they had this haiku competition. So I said, okay, this is new. So it was like those couple of years, 12, 13, 2014. It was all about haiku. But they had this competition, and if you got enough votes, your poem would become one that was sent off to Mars. It was going to be saved on a disc on the Maven, and they were going to send it to Mars. So as you can imagine, but the poem had to be about, Mars or space. It was a Mars-centric poem, obviously, very thematic. So I got to work, started doing research on Mars, learning everything that I can about Mars, and doing my best to turn it into a poem. I wrote a whole bunch of poems, and I'm trying to think, how was the submission process? I think you was only able to submit 2 via a website. It was a form on the website, and you can only submit 2. So I took like a day or two just to really process the different poems that I had, and then ended up submitting the 2 that I thought would resonate. And long story less long, there was once everyone's poems got saved, they were visible on the website. And okay, there's a lot of noise, so bear with me, stay with me here. So it was visible on the website, and then people can vote on it, right? So different people can vote on it. I called up all my friends, hey, vote. So I got like 5 votes from friends, and other people, the public, voted as well. And what ended up happening was, fortunately, one of my poems ended up making it, right? So it got saved on this disc, and it was sent over with Maven to Mars, and I was extremely happy about that. I think the big challenge in that was, just compiling all this research, learning all that I can about Mars, and just being confident enough to send that along. I probably should read these poems too, now that I think about it. But here's the certificate for that. Troy Phillip Thompson. The main, you can read that, but just very fortunate, for that, because it was just so great to see where this journey took me. This was something that was a creative endeavor, and I just kept with it, and to see some of the success was amazing, right? So that happened, which was just awesome. I didn't really know how to feel about that because it was just so different. But I was just happy. I was just happy about it, happy for myself, and just very thankful for those that voted my poetry in that. So that happened, and I might do a separate video, maybe with some of the reads on this, just in the interest of time. Maybe I can read. I feel like if I read one, I have to read all of them, and I don't have my Mars one yet. But I should have pulled that before the video, right? But nonetheless, we'll keep going, and I'll read the one that I'm probably the most appreciative of out of the collective. So let me see. So again, the Maven happens. I'm pretty psyched about that. 20 minutes, wow. Pretty psyched about that. And then I was doing some internet, so I said, what can I do next? What's the next thing I can do? And I did some research on Google, and I looked up some of the highest regarded journals of haiku, right? Like, now I wanted something with a little bit more prestige. I wanted something that wasn't kind of a, some type of local competition. Although what I had up to that point was impressive, but I wanted something with a little bit more prestige. And I wanted to do it in an avenue where I was amongst the best of the best. So after doing research, I learned about the Haiku Society of America. And then I learned about their journal, which is Frog Pond. And it publishes some of the highest regarded haiku in the world. So I said, okay, that's my next target. I put a bullseye on it. I said, that's my next target. I'm gonna write. I'm gonna study, see what type of poems they publish, and do it and make it. So long story less long, this was probably 2013 as well, the end of 2013. So I write, submit some poems to it. I think I may have submitted, I forget what was the limit, but I think it was probably like maybe 4 or 5, maybe even less than that. But I submitted a couple poems, some of what I believe to be my best poems at the time. And something very interesting happened. An important moment happened, and it was my first rejection in this regard, right? They said, good job. I got a personal handwritten letter from the editor, and it says, great poems. Unfortunately, it didn't go into this collection. It was probably typed, as a matter of fact. I wish it was handwritten, but it said, great job. Try again next time, right? Try with the next season. And they kind of gave me some information on that. So I was kind of bummed, but I was more excited because now a true challenge was set in. So I was like, okay, great. So I think at that point I kind of doubled down and became a student of the art form. So by that time I had a good sense of my identity as a writer and my own unique style. But with that poem, journal specifically, they really wanted traditional haiku. So haiku about, the seasons, about nature, again, very traditional Japanese haiku. So I had to adjust my style a bit to kind of adapt to that. So I was doing a lot of studying, a lot of reading on traditional works. I bought this book of about 1,000 haikus just to kind of get a sense of, the traditional pen. And after many weeks and many months of studying, I felt like I had it written down. So a lot of those poems traditionally are about the seasons, but also about love as well. So I was writing a lot of poems from that standpoint. It was really the fragility of life, the fragility of love, and that became the theme of a series of poems that I wrote, which was called Lavandula. So long story less long, I submitted that series. It was about 7 poems, I think, 6 or 7 poems. I think I cut it a bit to Frog Pond, and lo and behold, this was 2014. Lo and behold, I waited a couple weeks, and that those works got published. So I was very fortunate for that, and it was just a huge moment because now I felt that. For the first time, I really felt legitimate as a writer, as a poet, because it was definitely a huge challenge to really get a full understanding of the traditional style. So that was a big moment for me. Let me see if I can read this one. And this is the journal, Frog Pond, beautiful cover. I have a little thing here with the poem. That's probably been there for years now. But as you can see, there's people here from all over the world. But let me see. This is the poem that I wrote. Where am I at? Right here? Yeah. Let me see. So that goes, morning alarm, I forget the girl of my dreams. So the idea behind that, very briefly, and maybe I do another video going into a little bit in depth, but that was just really about playing on that theme of the fragility of life and love. This idea of having a dream, and you sometimes if you have a dream, you can live a whole life in one dream. And in this particular dream, I had a family, I had a wife, someone who I really loved. We lived a lifetime together, and at the crack of dawn, I woke up, and I remember her just for a couple seconds, like ... and then I forgot. So that was really what that particular poem was about, and it's still a favorite of mine out of all of them that I've written up to that point, and I'm very proud of that poem as well. But yeah, very meaningful poem, very meaningful series of poems that I was very happy to write, and that achievement definitely made me feel good. It really did, and that was really it. That was kind of my journey thus far as a poet. Now I write, like I said, here and there, particularly during the summer times. If I'm in a relationship, I'm writing. If I'm feeling down, I'm writing. So I try to do it here and there, even when I'm busy. Again, haiku for me is just very therapeutic. I just love it. And I think it's very important that everyone develops some type of creative, have some type of creative outlet. Because it can't always be about work. It can't always be serious. You got to have something creative, just something for you to vent. I don't care if it's painting. I don't care if it's drumming. I don't care if you play the piano, but just something different, just to really get your creative juices flowing. And for me, it's haiku. It's something that I very much pride myself on. Although you may not hear as much about it in professional development or any other endeavors that I'm currently involved with, haiku poetry is definitely it. So I'm very fortunate and blessed that I learned about it. That it came on my radar. Right? Shout out to Google for helping to get that to me. So yeah. Again, like I said, I definitely recommend everyone develop a creative outlet. Give haiku a try. It might be the next source of inspiration for you. And yeah, I appreciate you for listening. We're about because I might chop this video up, but I've been on this camera for a while, so I don't know if I'll do the full thing or if I might incorporate some cuts for the sake of space. But nonetheless, thank you for listening. If you have any questions, or you're currently in the process of investigating some creative outlets, let me know. Feel free to reach out. Happy to give my 2 cents if you'd like. So wishing you all a good day, and thank you for listening. Bye.